Have you ever felt an emptiness that only an animal could fill? Now, imagine raising a lion, a clumsy little cub with curious eyes, and then having to say goodbye. This is the true story of Antonio, an ordinary man whose heart beat to the rhythm of a lion's roar. He rescued a helpless cub, gave him a home, named him Simba, and filled his life with love. But life, as we all know, sometimes separates us from those we cherish most. Years later, with white hair and a weary body, Antonio made one final wish: to see Simba again. What happened at that reunion was so extraordinary that even the savannah seemed to pause and watch. Antonio wasn't a famous animal trainer or a movie adventurer. He was just an everyday man, with a yard full of dreams and a heart bigger than the lion he raised. As Simba grew up, their paths diverged, one toward the city, the other back to the wild. But the bond between them never faded. Have you ever felt an inexplicable void, as if a piece of your heart was left behind with someone, or something, you deeply love? Antonio felt that every day. When his health began to decline, he knew he had to see Simba one last time. But would the lion, now a king of the savannah, still recognize the man who taught him strength and love? Prepare your heart, because this touching real-life story will take you on an unforgettable journey of unlikely friendship, loyalty, and a timeless bond between species. Take a deep breath. What comes next will leave you speechless. Antonio never imagined his life would change because of a sound that wasn't quite a bark. It was 1998, and the sun scorched the dirt-packed yard where he was fixing a fence. Suddenly, a hoarse whimper, almost like a giant kitten's meow, came from behind the bushes. Ever heard something that made your heart skip a beat? Antonio dropped his hammer and went to look. There, curled up among dry branches, was a lion cub, skinny, with matted fur and eyes begging for help. Can you believe this happened? He'd laugh years later, still amazed. That tiny creature, fragile as a kitten, was Simba, a cub rescued from a bankrupt circus no one wanted. Antonio, with his knack for never turning away a soul in need, decided that lion cub was staying. Antonio's backyard became a wild playground. He dragged old tires for Simba to chew, built a shade with crooked tin sheets, and even rigged up a pool from a giant basin. The sound of water splashing as Simba jumped was music to his ears. Raising a tame lion wasn't easy. Simba, with his clumsy paws, knocked over everything, from paint cans to the neighbor's clothesline. Who hasn't laughed at the mess a pet makes? Antonio thought, cleaning up yet another disaster. He fed Simba oversized bottles, taught him to roll in the grass, and at night, they'd sit under the stars, as if the universe itself were blessing their unlikely friendship. But deep down, Antonio knew a lion didn't belong in a backyard. How do you keep a king of the jungle in a humble home? The bond between man and animal grew stronger every day. Simba followed Antonio like a furry shadow, purring loud enough to scare the birds. The smell of raw meat, which Antonio carefully cut to feed the cub, clung to the tiny kitchen. Curious neighbors peeked over the fence, some scared, others jealous of a connection with animals that felt like something out of a movie. Ever had a pet that seemed to understand your every word? Simba looked at Antonio as if he knew his fears, his joys. But the cub was growing fast, those clumsy paws were now powerful ones. Antonio noticed wary glances in the village. What now? He wondered, feeling the weight of a choice he didn't want to make. Time passed, and Simba outgrew the basin pool. His roars, once timid, echoed through the nights, making the neighborhood dogs tremble. Antonio felt pride, but also a pang in his chest. A lion needed space, freedom, a life a backyard couldn't offer. He heard about a sanctuary hundreds of miles away, a place where Simba could run, hunt, be a lion. But how do you say goodbye to a piece of your heart? Stop for a moment and imagine, how would you let go of someone who changed your life? Antonio had no answers, but life was about to decide for him. The day dawned with a heavy sky, as if the clouds knew what was coming. Antonio woke with a knot in his stomach, the bitter smell of coffee in his mug offering no comfort. Simba, now a young lion with a budding mane, stretched in the yard, unaware of what the day held. Antonio clutched a crumpled paper, an invitation, or rather, an order, to take Simba to a wildlife sanctuary. Ever felt like the right thing is also the thing that hurts the most? He muttered, stroking Simba's head. The lion, nearly 6 feet of pure muscle, seemed to sense the tension. The whole village whispered, a lion couldn't stay there forever. But how do you explain that to a heart that only knows love? The sanctuary was a 3-day drive away, in a reserve where tall grass swayed in the breeze. Antonio fixed up an old pickup truck, its engine coughing as if it protested the mission. Simba was placed in a reinforced crate, the clank of metal bars as he shifted cut Antonio like a knife. "Easy, big guy, it's for your own good," he said, but the words felt hollow. On the road, Antonio sang old songs, the same ones he'd hummed to Simba as a cub, trying to fool the sadness. Ever tried pretending everything's okay when your world's falling apart? Simba, quiet, stared through the bars, his golden eyes fixed on Antonio, as if asking, "Why are we doing this?" Arriving at the sanctuary was both a relief and a gut punch. The air at the sanctuary smelled of wet earth and freedom. The caretakers, with calloused hands and kind smiles, explained that Simba would learn to be a true lion, running with others of his kind. Antonio watched the gate open, and Simba hesitated, looking back. For a moment, it seemed the lion might run back to him. "Go, Simba, this is your place," Antonio said, his voice breaking. The lion took a few steps, his tail swishing like a silent farewell, and vanished into the trees. Antonio stood still, feeling the emptiness only those who've lost a piece of their soul can understand. If you love heartwarming animal stories, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any. But what then? How would Antonio carry on without his companion? Years passed, and Antonio's backyard was never the same. The tire Simba chewed gathered dust, the basin pool became a tool storage. He told stories of the lion to anyone who'd listen, his eyes sparkling as if Simba were still there. But deep down, Antonio carried a hole in his chest. Did Simba still remember him? Take a moment and feel this. What's it like to let go of someone you raised with so much love? Life moved on, but fate had a surprise neither Antonio nor Simba could have foreseen. The years had turned Antonio's hair white, and age bent his back like a dry branch in the wind. He spent his days in a rocking chair, the creak of wood echoing on the quiet porch. His health was failing, his heart, once as strong as Simba's, now struggled to beat. But one thing kept Antonio alive, the memory of the lion he raised. Ever felt a longing so deep it feels like it might burst? He asked his daughter, Clara, during her visits. One night, under a sky studded with stars, Antonio made a simple wish, almost a whisper. He wanted to see Simba one more time. It was his final wish, a longing stronger than life itself. Would fate grant him this chance? Clara, heartbroken to see her father so frail, took action. She tracked down the sanctuary where Simba lived, now a larger place with endless savannas. The scent of eucalyptus hung in the air as she called the caretakers, explaining Antonio's story with his lion. "He doesn't have much time," she said, her voice trembling. Moved by the heartfelt true story, the caretakers agreed to arrange a reunion. Antonio, hearing the news, smiled for the first time in months, his eyes shining as if the sun had risen inside him. But the trip would be long, and his body weak. Ever wanted something so badly it felt like the universe was rooting for you? To Antonio, it seemed like a sign that his bond with Simba had never broken. The preparation was a mix of hope and fear. Antonio, now relying on a cane, rehearsed what he'd say to Simba. "Will he recognize me?" he asked, as Clara packed a bag with warm clothes and an old rope toy Simba loved to chew. The hum of the van's engine, taking them to the sanctuary, sounded like a drumroll for the big moment. Antonio held the toy with trembling hands, like a talisman. The journey was risky, doctors warned the effort might be too much for him. But Antonio didn't care. "If I'm going, it'll be seeing my friend," he said, with a stubborn smile. How can someone love an animal so much? The answer was in Antonio's eyes, brimming with a love that crossed species. At the sanctuary, the air buzzed with anticipation. Antonio, leaning on Clara, gazed at the vast stretch of golden grass where Simba, now a majestic lion, ruled. His heart raced, not from illness, but from emotion. Take a moment and feel this. What would you do to see someone who changed your life again? The caretakers said Simba was just a few yards away, but no one knew how he'd react. Antonio gripped the rope toy, ready for the moment he'd dreamed of for years. The sun was low, painting the sky orange, as Antonio reached the spot where Simba would be. The breeze carried the dry scent of the savannah, mingled with something like hope. He leaned on his cane, his frail body trembling not just from weakness, but from years of longing. Clara held his arm, while the caretakers pointed to a golden shape among the trees. "There he is," they said, and Antonio held his breath. Ever felt your heart race like the whole world hinged on one moment? Simba, now a towering lion with a mane that seemed to glow in the sunset, walked slowly. Antonio raised the old rope toy, and the faint jingle of its bell echoed, weak but familiar. Simba stopped, ears perked, eyes locked on Antonio. For a moment, time froze, man and lion, separated by years and miles, now face to face. Then, something incredible happened. Simba let out a low roar, not threatening, but like a sigh of recognition. He moved forward, not rushing, but with a certainty that made everyone hold their breath. "Can you believe this?" Clara whispered, her eyes teary. Simba approached and, to the caretaker's astonishment, pressed his massive head against Antonio's chest, just like he did as a cub. The lion recognized as human. It was more than an emotional reunion, it was a miracle of love. Antonio, tears streaming down, stroked Simba's mane, laughing and crying at once. How could an animal hold so much affection for so long? The caretakers, used to wild lions, were stunned. One, voice choked, said, "I've never seen anything like this." Simba lay at Antonio's feet, purring so loudly it seemed to shake the ground. The old man, his cane forgotten on the ground, looked young again, as if Simba's touch had brought life back. Ever seen an animal look at you like they know everything about you? That's exactly what happened. Antonio talked to Simba, jumbled words about old times, the backyard, the nights under the stars. Simba just listened, as if he understood every syllable. Pause for a second and imagine, what does it mean to be remembered by someone you love? That moment was proof of a bond between man and animal that time couldn't erase. The lion's reaction shocked everyone. The caretakers snapped photos, some with tears in their eyes, others laughing in pure surprise. Clara, holding her phone, recorded it all, unaware that the video would change lives. Antonio, exhausted but radiant, whispered, "It was worth it, big guy." Simba replied with a gentle nudge, as if saying, "I never forgot you." The reunion, so simple yet so profound, left a mark on everyone who witnessed it. The video of Antonio and Simba's reunion, filmed almost by chance on Clara's phone, was pure heart. The shaky footage captured the exact moment Simba pressed his head against Antonio's chest, his soft roar blending with the old man's sobs. When Clara posted it online with the caption "Love doesn't forget," she had no idea what was coming. The ping of notifications exploded on her phone hours later, like thunder that wouldn't stop. Ever seen something so beautiful you had to share it with the world? Within days, the moving video had thousands of views, with people from all corners commenting, crying, and celebrating this touching story. Antonio and Simba became a symbol of a love that crossed species, something that felt like a dream. Social media went wild. On X, users shared clips with heart emojis and phrases like, "This is what humanity needs." Blogs and animal pages spread the story, highlighting a connection between man and animal that defied logic. The smell of morning coffee at Clara's house was replaced by the constant glow of her phone screen as she read messages from strangers touched by the story. "Ever had a pet that changed your life?" one comment asked, and soon hundreds replied with their own tales of unlikely friendships. The video crossed oceans, appearing on news shows and even TV programs. Antonio, who never owned a phone, barely grasped what viral meant, but he smiled hearing that his Simba was inspiring the world. The sanctuary felt the impact too. The once little-known place started receiving donations from people moved by the story. "This lion and this man reminded us what really matters," one donor wrote. The images of Antonio and Simba, now immortalized, became a reminder that deep bonds know no boundaries, not between species, not between countries. Antonio, weaker now, watched the videos on a tablet clear abroad, chuckling at Simba on the screen. "Look at him, my big guy," he said, voice hoarse but full of pride. Pause for a moment and feel this. How can such a simple story unite so many people? The lion's pure reaction became a beacon of hope in an often gray world. The impact didn't stop there. Schools used the video to teach empathy, and animal protection groups shared it to show the value of caring for rescued creatures. Antonio, unknowingly, became a quiet hero, and Simba, the lion who recognized as human, an icon of loyalty. Their story proved that love, when it's real, echoes forever. Sometimes, the greatest teachers have four paws and roar instead of speak. The story of Antonio and Simba, a simple man and a rescued lion, showed us that love knows no barriers, not time, not species, not distance. From the dusty backyard where it all began to the reunion that stopped the world, this unlikely friendship reminded us of something essential. The bonds we forge with those we love, human or animal, are what keep us alive. Antonio, with his final wish fulfilled, left with a full heart, knowing Simba never forgot him. In that video, it keeps touching hearts, proving a heartfelt true story can change how we see the world. Ever stop to think about the impact an animal can have on your life? Antonio and Simba taught us that love, when it's real, leaves marks that time can't erase. If this story warmed your heart, the next video YouTube suggests will move you even more. Don't miss it. And now, we want to hear from you. Have you ever had an animal that changed your life? Share it in the comments, because every story like this makes the world a brighter place. Until next time, may you find your own Simba to light up your days.